Hello, welcome to another monthly check-in with my Year of Brian Eno reading project. So if you've not seen any of these videos before, it's probably better if you do go back to the original start video, which I put up way back in, January, not surprisingly. For the last few videos I've switched over to doing these updates monthly. Originally they started out as weekly, but I went over to monthly. It just seemed a bit more practical. And so we're up to May now. So I'm going through May in this diary. Literally each day I read the corresponding day's entry and just reflect on what I might have been doing around that time and the sort of things that he talks about. It's interesting this month because really it's made up of two things. He's just got back from a trip he made at the end of April as part of the War Child charity. So he's been on a trip to that connected with the charity, and it literally at the start of May, very start of May, he's just got back, and then he's in the UK for a short period of time, and then he's back out to Ireland to work with U2 on an album, and that's really the majority of the month is taken up with Dublin, or not Dublin, but being out in Ireland. He does do some work in Dublin, and also he's staying down at Bono's place, which we'll talk a little bit about. I'll bring up a map and show you where everything is if you're not familiar with Ireland and whereabouts in Ireland Bono's house is. So yeah, so there's that switch between the two, but like I said, the most of the month is taken up with recording an album with U2, which we'll talk about in a moment. So I'll include links to details about the Bosnian War and also the War Child charity. I always include links to do with all of the albums that Brian Eno's been involved with. Not just U2, but just everything through this article on Wikipedia. I'll also update the Spotify playlists, which I've got three main ones. One which is albums that came out in '95, that are albums that came out by any artist, not just ones that he was involved with, but it does include ones that he's involved with. So I just keep updating that month by month as to what came out. So I'll add in May's releases for '95, or at least ones I'm aware of. And I'll also update a general playlist I've got where I'm just periodically working through like his life's work, and I'll update. I'll add a batch of those. I just tend to listen to a few here and there, but in chronological order. And I'll just add another, 3 or 4 albums maybe, and carry on with that. And then I'll also update there's a sort of new entries list I'm doing for the UK singles charts, which I found gave me a really good orientation in terms of what I heard. And it was an unusual playlist that I created, because what I've done is I've only put on the playlist singles that entered the top 20 in that month. And interestingly, it really takes me back, because I think I've said where I was working, we had the radio on, and the particular station tended to push the new releases a lot. And so, it takes me right back to the time. So I'm going to keep that going, because that's really interesting. So what was he working on with U2? Well, this. So it doesn't specifically mention, I don't think it mentions the title at the time, but it went on to be called, referred to as Passengers. This was the pseudonym they released it under, of U2 and Brian Eno. So it wasn't a U2 album with Brian Eno producing. It wasn't U2 with Brian Eno, even though it was a collaboration. They just released it under a separate pseudonym, referred to as Passengers. It was called Original Soundtracks 1. And as you can see from the recording period, it was finished up in July of 95. So probably going to find over the next episodes up until we get through July, I'm probably going to be mentioning this album quite a bit on and off, because by the time we get to the end of May, which is what this episode covers, he's gone back out to Ireland again, and he seems to be going out there for almost like weeks or so on, at a time. So in the diary, the things that come up, apart from obviously, because the bulk of it is this, talking about basically recording the album he seems to be going up to Dublin quite a bit from where he's staying. So he's staying at Bono's place. There's like a guest house on the property, and the guest house is called the Folly, and he's staying there. And then from there, he's like, hanging out with various people associated with the band, including the band themselves, and being driven around by various band members as well, and other people that are involved with U2. But also, I suppose commuting up to Dublin to work on the album as well, via this service called the DART, which is the Dublin Area Rapid Transit. And it runs, I suppose, down the east coast of Ireland. So as it says here, from Greystones, County Wicklow in the south, to Howth and Malahide in the north. 31 stations, 53 routes. We'll have a look at the map in a moment, and I'll orientate you, and I'll talk a little bit about that part of Ireland, because I've actually travelled around there quite extensively. I'll explain why in a moment. So I'll include a link to this if you're interested. I've never used the DART service, and I didn't really know about it, because the railway line that goes past where I've predominantly stayed isn't on this route at all. But it's basically a commuter service where they increase the service at certain times of day to suit commuters. So as of 2019, which is, I don't know what it was like back in 95 when he was taking it, but the trains run every 10 minutes on weekdays with a reduced service on weekends. And that's the sort of time period when they run these various sets of 4-car, 6-car, 8-car sets, and then they reduce the capacity and reduce the variance of the car sets accordingly. So here's a part of the east coast of Ireland. Here's Dublin. This is around here is where, oh no, sorry, I jumped down, it's all right. I'll start again. This is where the area where Bono's house is, and you can see this green line here is in fact the DART service, and there's Greystone there. Now, when I've gone out, so I went out to Ireland at least once a year from, I don't know what, the 2000 through to about 2009, which when I moved to Nova Scotia. And that's because my brother and his family actually live out in Ireland. So they're around in this area. So they're over in Kildare. So I have actually driven, because I either used to get a hire car or ultimately, in the end, actually, towards the tail end of my trips, I actually used to take the ferry across from Wales down to Rosslare. So I could take my own car and then just drive up to my brother's. But I've sort of driven a lot over the Wicklow Mountains National Park area. This is a lovely place actually to drive around. And I haven't been up as far as here, but I have driven across to Bray over here, and also Wicklow as well. I've been to other parts of Ireland. I think most of the places I've been to tend to be sort of more down, apart from going across here, more over here. And then if you scroll out, I did go down to, where was it? The Ring of Kerry. We took a trip down there one time. Hang on. So I've got to get my bearings here. It's probably better if I scroll out. Because it's quite nice. In the Ring of Kerry, you've got like a microclimate. I mean, don't make a fool of myself here, because let's just zoom out so we can see where we are. Just wanted to make sure it was the right bit here. Yeah, this bit here. So yeah, very pretty around here. And what surprised me is I went down quite late in the year, quite late autumn actually, and it was really lovely and warm down there at night. I can remember walking around in the evening around some local shops, and everybody was out and about, and it was really lovely. It's a lovely climate down there. Anyway, back to what this is originally about. So yeah, I understand that Bono's place is around here. I keep calling him Bono, don't I? Bono. Bono's place. And it sounds like in the diary that Eno's taking the Dart up to Dublin when he needs to, and as I said, travelling around the area a little bit. So there's sort of various places that get mentioned. And I'd heard the name The Folly mentioned before, and I didn't know exactly where it was, and I didn't realise it's the name they give to the guest house that's on the property there where people stay. And it seems like he's pretty much left to his own devices there. And then you get band members coming and going, and other people associated with the band that are, driving him around here, but he seems to be going backwards and forwards to Dublin on the Dart under his own steam when he needs to. Interestingly, in the book it mentions the DX7, which is a synthesizer manufactured from 1983 to 89, and he talks about, I think when he flies back to the UK and returns back to Ireland, he's talking about patches for a DX7. So I'm assuming they were using this on whatever tracks they were working on. Interesting form of synthesis, actually. It's an FM synthesizer. It's, from what I remember, I've never had a DX7. I did. I mean, original plan sometime in the 90s was for me to just get a cheap example of all the major types of synthesis, and I didn't get very far. I have a Roland what's called a D550, which is a rack mount D50, and then it sort of stopped there. I didn't go, oh no, actually that's not true. I did have an analog synth, a Roland, was it JX3P, I think, which when I moved to Canada, I didn't think it would survive the transatlantic trip, and I didn't really want to try and take it on the plane, and so I gifted it to a friend actually, because he was big into synthesizers. So yeah, I gave that away. But never had a DX of any description. I think you can actually get these fairly easily there's like a rack mounted version of this, and obviously nowadays you can just get these all as soft synth versions. I also haven't looked to see whether they've done a similar thing. Didn't they? Yeah, they did produce a mini version of this, I think, as well. Yamaha produced a series of mini synthesizers which looked like, certain key synths they produced, but just sort of compacted down. Oh, here we go. He did actually use it on the Apollo atmospheres and soundtracks. But I've always associated this for using what they call these spiky and crystalline sounds. There was this sort of antithesis of analog waveforms. But I mean, if you know what you're doing with the because there's amazing routing on this. I'm trying to remember how many units, whatever you want to call it, like modules, IFM modules it has. But if you've seen this, there's all these like schematics I've seen on them, which show the routings. I had a similar thing on another device actually, which had all these interesting routings for the synthesizers as well, and I can't remember what it was. Was it? Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Yamaha had a bit of a thing for that, because on the top of my effects rack mount unit, which is let me just check. Yeah, an FX 900. It's got schematics on the top of the rack actually, which shows you the routing for the effects modules. So that seemed to be a thing that they used to do on their units, was have these like little diagrams on the actual units themselves. Oh look, there you go. That's what I'm talking about. That thing there. Pretty cool. So yeah, really, that's most of the entry for this month is about the shenanigans in Ireland working with U2. I'll do a quick thing on films that came out that month, see if I recognise anything that I actually watched. I mean, I remember this coming out, Freaky Friday. I don't know which version of this one it was. Oh, this is a 1995 one. Okay, so I'm thinking of a different one. So yeah, I wasn't thinking of the original one. I was thinking of the remake actually. But this is another version. Crimson Tide. I don't know if I saw that at the cinema. May have done. No. Oh, I've seen that one, but a lot later on. Oh, and yeah, Die Hard with a Vengeance. I don't know how deep we were into the franchise by then. Where were we? Was this the third one in? I never know with these. Oh yes, it was the third. There we go. I did see that, but on video. I don't think I watched it at the cinema. Yeah, another one, Braveheart. Saw that on video, not at the cinema. Seen that on video. Yeah, so all of anything I did watch, it was after the fact on video. 95 in music. Anything I particularly remember from the time? I think I might own that actually. What's on it? Not sure. I know I've got Covenant And I know it got form as fatal to the flesh. I don't even know if I've listened to that one actually. Oh, because that was when Destroy Erase Improve came out by Mostar. Masters of Gent. Waves in Toyland. One of my brothers was big into them. Oh, Angel and the Dark River. Didn't listen to that till well after the fact, actually. Yeah, I'm trying to see if there's anything here which I actually listened to when it came out. No. I think I noticed there's a few next month which are more fit into that category. What were Rage doing then? Second Clutch album. That was Retro Thrash by them. Okay. Yeah, so, nothing. That's funny. Nothing of anything, nothing that I actually listened to at the time. Didn't Scott Walker do a collaboration with, was it Sun, the drone band, at some point? Oh, of course, yeah, that's a great album, Orchid, their debut. Another one I didn't listen to at the time, but listened to, well, probably not until I listened to about their third or fourth album, actually. Yeah, I think I've mentioned I didn't have an awful lot of disposable income in 95, so I was tending to be a bit selective. Yeah, I can already see one album here that I bought in 95, but we'll talk about that next month. I can see why it would have been relatively reasonable at the time. So there we have it. That's another check-in episode for A Year with Swollen Appendices. The book, which is a reproduction of a diary that all contains entries from a diary that Brian Eno kept for the year of 1995. Thanks once again for listening and watching. Bye for now, and I'll catch you in the next episode.